We are into the end game now. Number 2 Duke has a number 1 seed in its crosshairs, and Syracuse today needs a win to have any chance of playing into May. Anish, Shroff, Paul Carcaterra with you on this Saturday. Selection Sunday is a week from tomorrow, and Carc for Duke. If they take care of business down the stretch, you're looking at a potential 1 seed and no worse than a 2.
I agree with you, Anish, but for me, big picture-wise, I think chemistry, this is the best team Duke's had since the 2013-2014 repeat Blue Devil version, and they're playing for something this season. Remember, this was a team that was home in May, not in the NCAA tournament a year ago.
Yeah, and this Duke team led by Brennan O'Neal, now a junior, he has put up Tewaaraton-worthy numbers.
Last time against Syracuse in the OT win, you saw a player who was unguardable. 4 goals, 2 assists, assortment of ways too. Owning the one-on-one matchups, the outside shots, off the dribble type moves, and getting underneath defenders. 6'2", 225, insane skills. Cuse has a nightmare on their hands with O'Neal. And Syracuse might not have the elite group of dodging initiators, but it's a super skilled group that averages 14 goals a game, and they create offense with slick ball movement. Owen Hiltz is the master of the skip pass that creates some step downs for teammates. And when you're hitting on the outside, the inside game flourishes for Cuse as well. And don't forget about the 2-man game, which will give you some jaw-dropping moments. Last week, Alex Simmons. Are you kidding me?
Simmons, the goal of the year, 1 of 4 against Virginia in a loss for Syracuse. Second meeting of the season between these two. Duke won in the Carrier Dome back in early March, 14-13 in overtime. For John Danowski and Duke, their first win at the Dome, the JMA Wireless Dome as it's called now. Face-offs will be a big advantage for Duke today. Jake Naso, one of the best in the nation. That area has been a struggle all season long for the Cuse.
It has, and that's why I give so much credit to this offense. Really playing with the ball in their sticks way less than the opposition, but Naso, you could argue he might have had the best regular season of any face-off specialist in Division I lacrosse this year.
Duke will control to begin things. Charlie Balsamo, 0 and white. He had the game winner back on the 5th of March in OT. Balsamo snaking in and shooting wide. In goal for Syracuse, Will Mark.
I'll tell you though.
I've said it a few times, Carc. This season, he's had to defend the Alamo. Against Duke in that first meeting, 66 shots for the Blue Devils. Mark had 22 saves. And more often than not, he has bailed out a defense that's still figuring it out this late in the season.
He's been amazing. A bigger goalie who is really quick to get to low shots as well. He's unorthodox and never gets rattled too. I love his demeanor in terms of the way he approaches the position from a sports psychology perspective.
Balsamo from the high wing. Drives down with his left hand. Aidan Danenza feeds the middle and hits a cutting Dyson Williams. 42nd goal of the season for Williams, who averages a hat trick.
You almost forget about him, right, Anish? Brennan O'Neal, Andrew McAdorey, Charles Balsamo to the party, but a 40-goal scorer again. Dyson Williams, the Canadian product, automatic when he's cutting with the left hand. And the ball movement of this Duke team, their ability to find the inside, I thought that was huge in their Virginia win a couple of weeks ago as well. So smart in terms of the ball rotation around the perimeter and the way they jam it inside to Williams.
Syracuse comes up with the ball off the face-off, and the Orange with possession for the first time. Carc, in a matchup with what Duke has defensively, it's going to be hard for Syracuse to win one-on-ones, but what makes this offense special is the passing.
Yeah, the passing's incredible. The one player who had success one-on-one, and there's your passing right off the bat, Anish. Dodging will be difficult. Cole Kirst in the last matchup had some success one-on-one with 4 goals. But the rest of the opportunities come off assisted goals, and that's why the Orange are averaging 14 a game, because of their ability to pass and shoot with incredible hands and stick work. That's what separates this team. When you watch them move the ball around the perimeter, it's the Canadian influence. Guys like Owen Hiltz, Finn Thomson, Alex Simmons, they are so smooth.
In the first meeting of the season, Duke plus 34 on shots, plus 16 on ground balls, and they hit 12 pipes in that game. It was a 1-goal win for the Blue Devils in overtime. It could very easily have been a lot more.
Yeah, Will Mark had 22 saves. Brennan O'Neill, as I mentioned earlier, with the 14 shots. That's why I'm a little surprised right now. The first couple of reps offensively for Duke, we're seeing Landon Clary, who had the O'Neill matchup in the Dome in March. I thought maybe they'd switch that up because Clary's been out a bunch. Came back into the lineup last week after missing a few games. And when someone has 14 shots, and you watch that game, Anish, too, like O'Neill was getting his at will.
That's Luke Rhoa, the freshman, part of the second midfield. Works down the alley, skips it back to Jackson Birtwistle. His pass awry on the ground, picked up by Duke. And 20 in white, Jack Gray, part of a pretty strong defensive midfield. It was a question mark going into the season. No longer, it's one of the top short stick deep midi units in the country.
Absolutely. They've been super strong in terms of their one-on-one matchups, but they're also giving Duke way more opportunities in transition, which I felt was a big issue for them going from defense to offense a season ago. You have Aidan Maguire now, the freshman, Jack Gray, the sophomore. These guys are end-to-end athletes who can burn.
McAdorey got top side. We get a whistle away from the ball. It looked like somebody was in the crease. Tommy Schelling. Syracuse offensively led by the freshman, Joey Spallina. He's got it now, 22 in blue. He has authored one of the best freshman seasons in the storied history of the Syracuse lacrosse program.
Yes, he has, and I'll give him a ton of credit because when you look at the other players, the Zilbertis, the Powells of the world, a lot of them other than Mikey Powell didn't have the #1 matchup from day one. He's getting everyone's best defender from the second he started playing at Syracuse. The other guys, Mikey Powell was drawing top guys right off the bat as well. But Casey Powell and John Zilberti, they were able to acclimate into that spot. So the numbers are one thing for Spallina, but the attention that he's gotten too, the #1 recruit in the country with social media and all the hype, this kid's delivered and some.
I go back to his debut with the Cuse, 1 for 15 shooting in the very first game, and social media being what it is in this day and age, all over him. He responded the next 2 games by scoring 5 goals apiece.
Yeah, it tells you about his toughness, his ability to rebound. I mean, a lot of freshmen, after going 1 for 15, if you read the message boards and Twitter, you'd run for the hills, right? Spallina answered the bell.
Everybody's built like a bouncer on Twitter and message boards. It's kind of funny.
Exactly. Especially the guys and people who don't have the real names, right? The fake names.
Charlie Balsamo turns the corner, saved mark. There's Leadmon. He's put together a solid 5th year for Duke. He's given them that outside shooting ability, which stretches defense. Here comes Leadmon, now going inside, shoots low. Mark got his feet on it, loose near the crease. Balsamo trying to dig it out, but was in the crease.
There it is, Anish, right? The ability to go low. He's about 6'2", 6'3", but he's so good at going low because of the way that he widens his base at times, will flop to the ground. Stylistically, and you know this player, Dylan Ward from Team Canada, a bigger goalie with kind of an unorthodox approach, and they cover so much of the net.
Griffin Cook now. Cook, as a fifth-year senior, shooting above 30%, below 20 for his career entering play. Cole Kirst up top, high shot wide. That was Finn Thomson. 3 of the top 6 offensively, and those positions are quite interchangeable freshmen. And they expect to hit the transfer portal hard. They've got another top recruiting class coming in. This is a program, whether they get in this year or not, they have to beat Duke to have any shot. They are set up for the next few years. Here come the Blue Devils in transition. O'Neal beating Dyson Williams. It comes back to O'Neal. 38 goals on the season. O'Neal drives, beats Mark upstairs. Goal number 39, point number 66, and it's 2-1 Duke.
You give him an opportunity in transition, it's lights out, but credit this play by the 5th-year senior, Wilson Stevenson. Gets the cause turnover, the ground ball, and then pushes from defense to offense in a beautifully placed shot by Brennan O'Neal. When you're sweeping down that left alley to go across your body on a right-handed goalie like Will Mark, that's some sweet stuff by 34 in white.
That's going to be against Duke with holding. So Syracuse with the ball.
It's like turf. That's a Bermuda.
O'Neal had 4 goals, 2 assists against the Orange last time out. Fastest to 100 goals in program history. And you look at the star power that Duke has amassed, really, in terms of overall star power and having that standout guy. That program was Syracuse, at least on the offensive end, for years. And then they passed the torch, really, to Duke. You think of the guys Duke has had with Matt Danowski and Zach Greer and Ned Plotty, as Joey Spallina ties it at 2. And Spallina wears that fabled 22, which the Stars at Syracuse have worn.
He's been able to deliver all season long. And I love how he goes to his left hand and he keeps the confidence not to go back to the right to get a defender trail check, and Spallina answers for the Cuse.
Game coming from Brennan O'Neal and Joey Spallina. They have known each other since childhood, grew up playing together on Long Island.
Yeah, they played for Joe Spallina Sr. in the Orange Crush. They played in the World Series of Lacrosse and dominated weekend tournaments in the summer, and also teammates with Aidan Danenza and Andrew McAdorey. But I remember watching these guys. Everyone was hyping them. They were in middle school, and Joe Spallina was coaching this team. Had Joey playing a couple years up. Brennan O'Neal's 2 years older than Joey Spallina, and I remember watching these guys. The skill level was absolutely insane. Like, they had the skill level of pro players, just smaller bodies. And I remember O'Neal, when he was in 8th grade, he was shooting well over 90 miles per hour. And Joey Spallina was throwing balls behind his back, and just the chemistry of these teams, you know, were just amazing to watch.
You think about this 3rd grade team. O'Neal, Spallina, Andrew McAdorey was on that team, and he scores along with Xavier Arline, the quarterback for the Navy football team, and their star attackman as well.
Andrew McAdorey was a midfielder, a spark plug who could beat anyone off the dribble. Now he's playing attack for the Blue Devils in quarterbacking because of the quickness. You see the change of direction and the ability to stay north-south. I always say when you attack a defender and you're coming above goal line extended, your body should be facing the opposite end line, so you don't lose that angle. And that's what McAdorey does. McAdorey was facing off on those 91 Crush teams, and he was an amazing face-off guy as well.
Here is Naso, another Long Island product. That one turned away. Clark, that's got to be a deep moment, though, for those three. It's O'Neal, it's Spallina, and it's McAdorey scoring 3 consecutive goals. And all 3 of them have been playing either together or against each other in some way, shape, or form since 3rd grade.
Yes, it's incredible. And the common denominator between all of them, they're lacrosse junkies. They live and breathe the sport. And you see it in their skill. You don't get the hands and the creativity without having that stick and extension of your body. And for Spallina and McAdorey and O'Neal and all those other teammates on the 91 Crush, lacrosse was life.
Here is Joey Spallina, dad, the women's head coach at Stony Brook. He also coached in the MLL with the Lizards, and that allowed a young Joey Spallina to be around the likes of a Paul Rabel, a Will Manny, a Rob Pinnell. He was the ball boy.
Absolutely. One of those other players, Jojo Marasco, who I know Joey loved watching play. He wore 22 at Syracuse.
Spallina used to have that 22 jersey hanging in his room as a kid. Great passing, the shot wide.
You see that one?
Wilhelm.
Backhand. That was sweet.
Yeah, I was good ID, the goalie for Duke. Wilhelm, grad transfer from Division III St. Lawrence.
That's one Birtwistle will want back.
Griffin Cook scorches the back of the net, ties the game at 3, and back and forth we go. Both teams have alternated goals in this first quarter.
You know, Anish, you were saying moments ago how Cook's shooting percentage has increased. This one, he beats Wilhelm near pipe on a bouncer that Helm probably would love to see again. But regardless, that's big for Syracuse because they're lacking the one-on-one dodges against a team like Duke. Like, where are you going to manufacture your offense? Spallina unassisted, Cook unassisted. So this will now force Duke to be on a little bit more red alert in terms of the dodgers. And that's when you can counter if you're Syracuse with the passing. So the Spallina unassisted goal and the Cook unassisted goals are good signs for this offense.
O'Neal takes it to X, dumps it to McAdorey, his old high school teammate. Trying to get underneath Alexo. Ball loose on the turf. And scooped up by Sam Alexo. He's been a threat in transition as a long pole. He can play the wings of faceoffs and then slides down to close defense.
Yeah, he's playing close today. And if he misses that check, who's a beautiful over the head, McAdorey is going in for an easy shot. And that would not be a fun conversation to witness between him and Coach Petramala, going above the head, over the top on goal line extended. But I think you lose some fast break ability by having Alexo at close defense.
Great matchup
so good
here,
in the middle of the field.
And Kenny Brower, 29 in white. Kark, for my money, he's the ACC Defensive Player of the Year.
I would agree. You know, the others in the running, Cole Kastner from Virginia, Chris Fake from Notre Dame. I think the consistency, though, of Brower.
Saved by Helm on the shot by Cole Kirst.
You know, you look at Kenny Brower. Statistically, Pat Cavanaugh is the one player who had a day on him, but I did that game. Like, he never really beat Kenny Brower cleanly in that game. Pat was so creative and rabbit out of a hat type shots, and that's what makes Pat Cavanaugh Pat Cavanaugh. But I would agree with you, if the season ended right now, it's Kenny Brower, I think, for the Defensive Player of the Year. And obviously Notre Dame fans and Chris Fake have something to say about that, and he'll get another shot at Connor Schellenberger, who had a day against him at Notre Dame when Virginia won. They'll play tomorrow on ESPNU at 2 p.m.
Notre Dame with a win likely locks up a 1 seed. They would probably have to beat UNC as well. Virginia, I'm not sure they can get to a 1, but might be able to move up to a 2 line. Here's O'Neal from the wing. Big save mark. Rebound loose. It comes to Balsamo. Now
That's what you want, right? Mark makes that save, Anish, and then it's a rebound. And Another shot at a defense that could get tired playing so many minutes this season.
McAdorey drew the slide, picked up by Koskinen on the switch. Now Danenza from up top. Still plenty of time to shoot. O'Neal from the alley slips. Clary tries to jar it loose. Leadmon, one more. McAdorey finds the angle and scorches the top shelf.
Rebounds are huge, Anish. Mark makes a fantastic save on a step down by Brennan O'Neal. Duke gets the ground ball. When O'Neal slips, the defense kind of gets out of sync because they thought they had an opportunity to double O'Neal because he was on the ground. And the ball movement from Danenza up top down to McAdorey. He answers with a bullet.
Last year, McAdorey set Duke's freshman midfield scoring record, a mark that had stood since 1996. He's built on that season. Should garner some All-American honors. Duke controlling the face-off X, no surprise there. Naso will stay out on offense. Nobody picks him up. Naso all the way, saved by Mark. He's a danger there. He's got 4 goals this season.
He is, but have you seen some of these stops by Will Mark in the first quarter? Incredible.
In transition, it's the long pole. Billy Dwan, who scored last week against Virginia, the freshman. Now, Will Mark, we're going to have to start calling him Davy Crockett. Rhoa's got the short stick, now gives it up. Here's Owen Hiltz, great passer, team leader in assists. Cook working on Tyler Carpenter, now picked up by the shorty Jake Caputo. Hiltz skips it back to Spallina. Hiltz got his hands free, shoots it wide, and the back up to Cook.
So smooth, 77 in blue. You just said leads the team in assists. His skip passes, I think, are the best in the country. He throws a through pass. Reminds me of a Grant Ament or Tom Schreiber.
Spallina with a great feed and helm robs Birtwistle. Second save for the Kaiser, Wilhelm.
Birtwistle's had a couple of opportunities, Anish. The behind the back pass from Spallina and then that easy one inside. You have more time than you think. You got to move the goalie. Jump him from pipe to pipe.
Final minute, quarter number 1. Both teams have traded goals from the get-go. No team has scored 2 consecutive goals. Here's Tommy Schelling. Grad transfer from Lehigh, where he had a standout career. He'll go to work on Jake Murphy, the freshman. O'Neal setting the pick. Now it's O'Neal working on Clary. O'Neal spun back. Plays it back to X. Here's Schelling, an attackman at Lehigh, playing midfield for Duke. Inside roll for the goal. Comfortable on the invert. He was that guy for the Lehigh Mountain Hawks.
He's coming alive, too. I thought 2 weeks ago against Virginia was the best game of the season for Tommy Schelling. And you talk to Coach Danowski, when you're a transfer, you come into a new system, you change your position, there's an acclimation period. But Tommy Schelling's comfort zone is from behind the cage. That's where he lived for 3+ years at Lehigh, and when you have him as a midfielder, you put him behind the cage, he can give you those kind of opportunities. But from that same spot against Virginia, I saw him passing as well, so he gives you a varied, multi-dimensional invert midi from that spot.
Late ride before the end of the quarter. Syracuse chucks it downfield, and Duke, with the final 2 tallies of quarter number 1, has a 5-3 lead. Long Island standing up strong in this opening quarter. O'Neal, McAdorey, Spallina all cashing in. Duke eyeing that #1 seed with a 5-3 lead on the Orange. In the March 5th meeting between Syracuse and Duke up at the Dome, the Blue Devils took 15 shots in the first quarter. Only 3 hit the cage, only 1 found the back of the net. 11 shots in the first quarter today, 10 on goal, 5 went in.
Yeah, you had the 12 pipes the last time these two teams played. I remember it was 10-6 in the third quarter. Syracuse was winning, but I felt like the control of the game was completely on Duke's side because they doubled them in shots, all the pipes, and Will Mark was absolutely amazing in that game with the 22 saves, and he looks like he's playing the typical Will Mark game in this first quarter. It's the question, though, defensively, with all the minutes the Orange play, they get on their heels late in games with their inability sometimes to win face-offs and go on face-off runs. This defense is asked to play a ton of time.
Duke today 7 out of 10 at the face-off X. All Naso there. It's been fine taking 9 of the 10 draws for the Cuse, or choose of the other. Balsamo inverts against Aviles. Now Danenza against Carter Rice. Last week, Rice went viral when, let's just say he was met by Ricky Miazon. Great feed inside, and Dyson Williams splashes one home. 3 unanswered for Duke.
There's a few players in the country, the rules don't apply like they do for every other player in terms of if they're open. Dyson Williams is one. Peyton Cormier and Xander Dixon from Virginia. Jake Taylor from Notre Dame. If they're showing their stick, they're open. Dyson Williams needs a fraction of a second to catch and shoot all in the same motion. And it's the trust that Brennan O'Neill has for Dyson Williams on that pass. Brennan O'Neill is not throwing that pass to any other player on the Duke team other than Dyson Williams.
That became a scramble, but it's still won by Duke and Aidan Maguire. Dyson Williams now has scored at least 2 goals in 13 of Duke's 14 games. He's from the same hometown in Canada as Duke legend Zach Greer. In fact, their dads played together in the NLL and for Team Canada.
Similar style, too. Both lefties. Incredible hands and toughness. Dyson Williams is going to play pro indoor for many, many years, like his dad Sean did for 18.
This is O'Neill. He's got a short stick Murphy. That's a mismatch. Where does the slide come? There it is. O'Neill gives it up. Caputo. Shot not there for Jack Pappendick. Cuse the other way. Clary being trail checked. Has to dump it back. And you are allowed to go behind the midfield line in the first 20 seconds of the shot clock. So that is a legal play for Syracuse. Just have to keep it now on the offensive half after that shot clock hits 60. Spallina over to Michael Leo. The freshman had the game winner in that thrilling win against North Carolina at Good Counsel High School in Maryland. Spallina feeding the middle. Shot wide by the Denver transfer, Alex Simmons. Kark, you saw that Simmons goal in real time against Virginia. What was your first impression when he had that incredible goal?
My jaw dropped. It was absolutely insane. I mean, to do it right off the 2-man game. Simmons is a righty, and a lot of people will say, oh, it's his dominant hand, his bottom hand, doing it left-handed. For me, I think the level of difficulty is that much more. And I was curious for Alex. I asked him, I said, would have that been easier for you to do right-handed or left-handed? Because for some people, it's easier to do with one hand rather than the other. Just because you're a righty doesn't mean you want to do it righty. Some players are bottom hand dominant. For him, he said his right hand is his strong hand as well. But if he did it right hand, he'd probably roof it with so much power. But it just shows you the skill level, the creativity, the improv, and also the confidence to do it, because you know your coach, Gary Gait, wants to see that kind of lacrosse. There's a green light there. And that green light's going to shine more and more over the years. When Gary Gait gets his players in year after year, trust me, you'll see a lot more of that.
Here is Finn Thomson. He's got that ability. At some programs, you do that, you get scolded, either after the game or on the sideline right after. At Syracuse, you're encouraged. Hiltz, quick release, offline. And Gary Gait told us that last year. He said that was one of his big complaints, that he wanted to see more creativity. He wanted to see more flair, more freedom, more imaginative freedom from his offense.
That's the way he played. He's the greatest player of all time, and I don't think it's close. The greatest attackman of all time, Mikey Powell. The greatest midfielder, Gary Gait. The greatest defender, Dave Petramala. I'll fight anyone on those three, right? But the overall greatest player ever is Gary Gait. Changed the way the game of lacrosse has been played.
Maguire with a hard shot.
And I say that, Anish, because if you watch lacrosse prior to his arrival in 1986, right? If you watch an 86 lacrosse game, he arrived in 87. The game looked drastically different than it did 4 years later when he left, because of the creativity, the stick skills, all the type of trick shots, things you never even imagined, jumping from the back of the goal, full field behind the back passes.
He was the evolutionary leap in the sport at the time.
Greatest impact anyone's ever had on a sport, or the sport of lacrosse for that matter, has been Gary Gait. And I don't think it's close because of those reasons I just said.
6-3 Duke, 3 unanswered for the Blue Devils. They have shut out Syracuse in this second quarter. Here is Balsamo. Maneuvering on Aviles. Danenza sets the pick, gets it back. That hits the side of the net. And Mark peels it off the skirt.
Clearing in this game will be massive. Because of the face-off discrepancy, Syracuse has to clear the ball at about 90%.
One thing Duke has done a good job of today, they have not committed a penalty. Syracuse has one of the top man-up units in the country, and we've heard a lot of coaches say, you want to beat Syracuse, the first thing is don't give them the extra man. Here comes Hiltz. There's the flash and the splash. Hiltz to Luke Rhoa. It's 6-4.
This is something you would do if you're playing 3-on-3 in your backyard, right? You're playing 3-by on the smaller goals. Defenders are draped all over you. Behind the back is one thing on this pass, but the timing of the cut. Anish, he doesn't throw it to a stationary player here. Luke Rhoa is moving his feet. Owen Hiltz is getting double teamed, and he throws that behind his back. That was gorgeous.
Team leading 28th assist for Hiltz. Duke the other way. O'Neal on the doorstep. Williams denied. Mark robbed a goal. Here comes the Cuse the other way. Max Rosa scored against Virginia last week in a 19-12 loss.
See what Will Mark can do for you? Duke could have gone up 7-4. Now Cuse has the ball, can cut it to 1.
It wasn't just 7-4, Carc. It was 7-4, and then you get Naso back out there, and it's make it, take it.
Exactly. Insane goalies stop runs and create runs.
Simmons against Jake Caputo. Here's Kirst from the outside. Cole Kirst coming off 3 straight hat tricks. Makes it a 6-5 game with 8:24 to go in the first half.
He was a star offensively in the first round against Duke with 4 goals. But he did it with a big-time dodging presence as Mark steals one from Dyson Williams, who's automatic from that spot typically. And then the step down and the force of Cole Kirst, the transfer from Lehigh, stepped on campus into the broadcasting school, the Newhouse School of Journalism up at Cuse. I know someone who went there, named Anish Shroff. And Cole Kirst shows up on campus in the fall, almost like a gift, right? He's going there, he's gonna use his last year of eligibility. Players love him so much. His leadership skills and the way that he brings the team together, so powerful and strong. He's a captain in his grad transfer year. And if you talk to anyone around the program, when you say Cole Kirst, they smile.
O'Neal spun around, and now he's got a short stick Murphy, who turned his head looking for help. There's the slide. O'Neal fires. That's turned away. Resets the shot clock. Another save by Mark. Now it's McAdorey. Schelling setting the pick for O'Neal, feeding the crease. Ball knocked down. Picked up by Syracuse. A chance to tie for the Orange, if they can clear. Hiltz will try to track this down, keeps it in bounds. And now Syracuse to work on offense. Cole Kirst guarded by Wilson Stevenson. A couple of years ago, there were legitimate concerns if Stevenson would walk again, forget about lacrosse. And now he has transformed into an all-ACC, all-America type of player. Hard shot in the goal, we're tied at 6. Luke Rhoa, 2 in a row. He came into this game in a 1 for 17 shooting slump, and we're tied at 6.
There is promise, there is hope up in Central New York because of the young freshman talent that Gary Gate has. You know about Spallina and Thomson? Well, here comes Luke Rhoa with 2.
Will Mark kept Duke at bay, and when it seemed that the Blue Devils were on the verge of pulling away, he made some big saves and he gave the offense a chance to get back.
He's so unorthodox, stands about 6'2½", and gets super low on shots too, but I've seen him steal shots high even when it looks like he's flopping low, so the style might not be traditional. The results work with Will Mark, and he has been peppered all season long in terms of a sheer stopper. The 2 best goalies in the country, I think, are Will Mark and Liam Entenmann from Notre Dame. But the one thing I think Mark probably does better than Liam Entenmann is he steals some shots a little bit more. Entenmann has the edge in terms of his clearing.
And Entenmann also has a much better supporting cast on defense right now.
Can catch his breath.
What's the counterpunch for Duke? They had scored 3 in a row to take a 6-3 lead. Syracuse has responded with a 3-0 run. 2 goals by Rhoa, 1 by Kirst, and Balsamo, who had the game winner in overtime up in Central New York, gives Duke a 7-6 lead, his first of the afternoon.
You look at Charles Balsamo and you see how comfortable he is for a midfielder from that spot, because he's played the left-handed attack spot his whole life. Brennan O'Neal occupies that spot now, but you have some versatility with Balsamo. You can have him dodge a shorty up top, or you can put him on the wing or behind. He has skill, he has guts, and he wants the rock. Like, make no mistake about it. When you look at this Duke offense, O'Neal and McAdorey, the confidence to have the ball in their stick, I think Charles Balsamo, in terms of volume, is about as comfortable as any other player outside of O'Neal and McAdorey.
O'Neal with a rifle, make it, take it. Naso wins the faceoff, and it's his high school teammate Brennan O'Neal with his second, 8-6.
Anish, you were asking, what's the counter? The counter for me is Brennan O'Neal, and the reason being is, last time out, He had 14 shots against Syracuse. He was instant offense. The Orange did not have an answer for him at all. And now you have Landon Clary, who is guarding him again. And Landon Clary's a really solid defender. But O'Neal was feasting in that last game. Only had the 6 points, but with all the pipes and Mark stealing shots, O'Neal was comfortable in that matchup. So if I'm Duke, I'm going heavy dose of Brennan O'Neal.
O'Neal 2 for 5 shooting today. He was 3 of his last 15 entering play. Only had 1 goal against Notre Dame. Chris Fake did a nice job on him. And then in the game against Virginia, 2 of 11 shooting. 8-6 Duke. Ryan McKenzie, the junior, with 1 goal this year, 35 in white. He's a Syracuse native. Played at Christian Brothers Academy up in central New York. Now McAdorey against Alexo. Back up to O'Neal. O'Neal, jump shot, how did he do it? A hat trick for O'Neal, his 7th, making 8th hat trick of the season, and it's 9-6. Yeah, it's not a bad play, Cark. Give it to 34 and say go.
At the end of the day, the Tewaaraton is a 3-horse race between Brennan O'Neal, Pat Cavanaugh from Notre Dame, and C.J. Kirst from Cornell. But the unicorn of the bunch is this guy, because he is a combination of all. And when you watch him play, he's got the fierceness and the dodging ability of Kirst. He's got some creativity that Pat Cavanaugh has. Maybe not at that same level, but when you combine his size, speed, and skill, he's different than everyone else in the country. Like, he makes plays a lot of times that you say, like, how do you stop that? How do you stop it?
Will Marks stopping the shot from Naso. All the momentum now back to Duke. They get that 1 goal. And Naso starts winning faceoffs. And the Blue Devils driving downhill. So a 3-0 run by Duke to go up 6-3. A 3-0 run by the Cuse to tie. 3 straight now by the Blue Devils. Now Schelling, he scored on the invert once. And he stepped in the crease.
The one player, Anish, this season who's been able to bottle up Brennan O'Neal is Chris Fake. And what Chris Fake did defensively in that game, he never let O'Neal get momentum. Like, you felt like Fake was on him from the moment he caught the ball.
Aviles gets his own rebound, goes behind the back. That's a D-Mitty. Spallina's got the backup. That was a chance for Syracuse. Aviles had a great first look.
I am all for behind the backs. That's not the time to do it. That time you get your own rebound and you give yourself about as simple of a look as you possibly would want, right? Yeah. Just bury it.
Here comes Kirst, weaving down the alley. Back up to Spallina. Spallina was against Versoli. Stick checked away. There's Stevenson again. Another caused turnover. He leads the team in that category. And let's see if Duke can go quickly. Jake Caputo, D-Mitty, now McAdorey. Less than 4 minutes to play opening half. 9 goals for the Blue Devils. New goalie for Duke is Andrew Bonafide. Flag down. It's against Syracuse. So Duke will take its time. Here's Leadmon, and he fires wide and will get the penalty. See if we can find out what happened to Helm, the starting goalkeeper.
Yeah, Helm had the 5 saves, 6 goals against. The one by Cook, I thought he should have saved. Outside of that, I thought he was fine. Not to warrant maybe a change based on production, but we'll get more on that.
Necessary roughness 1 minute. 12 Syracuse, all sides 30 seconds.
So Duke will have a two-man advantage for the first 30 seconds. And then a man advantage for the final 30 seconds of this man up.
Yeah, Wilson Stevenson throws the ball, one Mississippi, boom, yay. Michael Leal with the hit. Yeah, that's a little late. You know, sometimes momentum's just going to take you there, Anish, but I thought there was enough time there that's the right call.
With this Duke man-up unit clicking at 42%, and you have to know where Brennan O'Neill is. 6 extra man goals this season, 21 for his career. It's interesting, Kark. I look at the top 3 in the ACC, all bona fide national championship contenders. Frankly, I'm not convinced yet there's a team outside of Duke, Notre Dame, and Virginia that can win a championship. Crazy things have happened, so you never know. But the interesting part of that 3-ring circus, Duke has Virginia's number. They've had it for 20 years. Virginia has Notre Dame's number, and Notre Dame has Duke's number.
It's nuts. I was explaining that this week when I was on ACC PM. It's nuts when you think about it, right? Because the matchups year in and year out, you think, okay, maybe the history won't play itself out. Duke has not lost to Virginia since 2004. John Danowski's
in the regular
never
season.
lost.
In the regular season.
John Danowski has never lost in the regular season to Virginia. And Notre Dame in the regular season has Duke's number, but not in the postseason, right? It's absolutely bizarre. I agree with you. These are the 3 best teams, but I do think when you look at this field, there are teams that could win and beat these teams on a one-off, but can they win 4 in a row in May? I certainly think Cornell is capable of winning and beating one of these 3 teams. But can you do it?
That's why getting a 1 seed versus a 2, there's a marked difference. Here's O'Neill. That's offline. And we'll talk about that at halftime. Historically, a 1 seed, it's almost a guaranteed path to championship weekend. For a 2 seed, it's not even 50% since they expanded the tournament.
Well, right now,
and think about it this year. You can, projected 7. You want Cornell, last year's national runner-up, if you're the 2 seed in the quarters?
No, and they could win in a one-off. Maryland could win in a one-off too. I don't know if Maryland could win 2 games in 48 hours, but they've shown that. They went down to Virginia early in the season, and what did they do? They beat the Cavaliers, but they also lost to Michigan at home and were kind of blown out in that game late in the 4th quarter. So Maryland's a team that sometimes you have a tough time understanding what their true upside is, because they played a lot of tight games this year. Sometimes they play to their competition. You know, when it's Virginia, yeah, you get the best version of them. When it's Michigan, who is a much improved world teams, yeah.
At halftime, we will reveal the selection committee's latest top 10. And there it is. Since 2003, when the tournament expanded, there have been 19 NCAA tournaments. The 1 seed has reached the semifinals 18 times. The 2 seed 9 times. The 3 seed 10 times. So there is a significant advantage to being that number 1 seed. And shoot, we saw it last year. Georgetown was the 2 seed, and they lost in the 1st round. In fact, a 1 seed has never lost that 1st round game. A 2 seed has lost 5 times in the 1st round. It happened twice to Syracuse, Army, and Bryant. And by the way, the 'Cuse fans know the only time as Dyson Williams gets his 3rd, 4 straight for the Blue Devils, it's 10-6. 2011 was the only time a 1 seed since tournament expansion did not reach championship weekend, when the Catalino wine mixer got the best of Syracuse in the quarters.
Look how he shoots this ball. And this is a hard shot, actually, but he catches it. And this is a really funky release by Dyson Williams, because a lot of times you see him with the stick on a 3/4 release from that same spot. But the defender was kind of in his way for his natural release, and that just shows you what a finisher looks like. A finisher at an elite level like Dyson Williams changes their release points. And that was about as hard of a shot to track. It looked like your customary overhand. No, he caught it, and like the slightest twister of a way brings it closer to his face when he releases that. And when you watch him on tape, that's not his normal release point, but he adjusts based on the defensive pressure.
The Duke attack accounting for 8 of the 10 goals. And now Syracuse will try to get its first shot on goal against the new goalie, Andrew Bonafide. 32 in white has come in for William Helm. Birtwistle tried to go behind the back. It's scooped up by Cook. And we get a whistle, a timeout by Gary Gate.
Bonafide has paid his dues. He's a 5th-year senior. A lot of people thought he would be the goalie this season. But in came William Helm, and the transfer from St. Lawrence and what he did in the offseason secured that spot. He's been steady all season, Helm, and you see him right there. It doesn't appear as if he's hurt. Looks like a coach's decision, but this is the type of player a team will rally around. I mean, Bonafide comes back for a 5th year. He's getting his master's degree, and he gets beat out. And he's been there since the jump as a freshman. So if you're Duke, like, you want to play for Bonafide right now. He's getting an opportunity.
And Kark, I believe Bonafide and Liam Entenmann of Notre Dame crossed paths while they were both at Chaminade.
The Chaminade goalie pipeline's nuts. Liam Entenmann only started 1 season. He backed up this guy. This guy, Bonafide, is 1 year ahead of Entenmann. I actually spoke to Entenmann when I was out at Notre Dame earlier this year, and we talked about that. Like, he had to pay his dues. That's not easy for a blue chip goalie to wait until his senior year to be the starter in high school. A lot of blue chip goalies in high school start as freshmen or sophomores. But it just shows you that program at Chaminade, it's a pipeline. You think of the players it's produced. Michael Earhart, who was MVP of the 2018 World Championships. Matt Cavanaugh. You know, just
about
so
half
many.
of Notre Dame's roster, yeah, right now.
Charles Balsamo.
Yep. Bonafide this season, this is his 6th game. He has made 5 saves, faced 9 shots. He's played about 25 minutes in goal. Saw action in 7 games last year, 6th the year before that. 5th-year senior in the graduate program. And comes up with one there as Tyler Carpenter will clear. This will be interesting to find out after the game, or if we can find out at halftime why the change. Did something happen to Helm? Was he hurt? Or was this related to something else?
Yeah, the helmet was on. He was encouraging Bonafide.
Just not something you expect at this stage in the season, at this stage in the game. About a 14-second differential between game clock and shot clock. McAdorey will milk the shot clock. Now down to 20.
They're going to have to support this matchup here with a quick slide.
McAdorey right down the alley, had a step on Aviles. Save is made, picked up by Syracuse. Final 20 seconds, opening half. Blue Devils on a 4-0 run. Kirst spins it. Spallina shot saved. Bonafide 2 for 2 off the bench. Leadmon chucks it downfield. And McAdorey's down. Getting a little testy.
You know, Anish, goalie, yeah, he's calling the guys off. He doesn't want this thing to get messy. Some words. Let's take a look at this. Left side of the screen. See McAdorey.
Looks like he was going for the ball.
Yeah.
He got tied up with Cook. And then Cook coming off. Looked like he bumped with Dyson Williams.
Dyson Williams is a Canadian box guy. He has a hockey mentality. He's not going to like that when his teammate goes down. But credit Duke for the late second quarter surge. And Bonifati coming off the bench, ice cold with 2 huge saves, Anish.
But they added 2 seconds back on the clock, and it looks like they'll get Griffin Cook with the penalty. And so some players went into the locker room, now making their way back out on the field. And for Duke, this is simple. You possess the ball for 2 seconds, and then you begin the third quarter without a face-off, end the ball with the extra man.
Let's look at this again. Right side of the screen. The ball's up in the air.
That's a tough one to call, isn't it?
It is, because Cook, and then you see Dyson Williams and Cook jawing there. It's tough because as a defender and Cook right there, you don't want McAdorey catching the ball, and it's hard to track how far you actually are from the ball when it's way up in the air.
Leadmon took the shot.
Why?
And that means you have a face-off to begin the third quarter. Duke might be thinking, listen, we're 14 out of 18 on face-offs. It's a moot point. Let's see if you can catch the other team napping. But now there will be a face-off to begin the third quarter. Blue Devils 10-1 on the season when leading at the half. They lead by 4. Number 2 Duke on top of number 15 Syracuse.
Sorry.
Andrew Bonifati took over for Wilhelm in goal for Duke in the first half. We're told it's not injury related. It was performance related. And Syracuse, which had struggled at the X, wins the opening faceoff of quarter number 3. Owen Hiltz being chased by Keith Boyer. His brother Jose plays for Notre Dame, and this is what Kark talks about Yorktown.
Come on, you got to be proud of these guys. The way that they've handled themselves, the way they play with straight passion. But Anish, a big deal for me is this Bonifati switch from Helm in the cage, because this late in the season, I don't know, the psychological advantages to disadvantages. Maybe you give Bonifati the added kind of game experience, and if you have to turn to him, you have something to fall back on. As Spallina gets one. But I worry about William Helm. How will he respond when he gets that next start? Will he be looking over his shoulder a little bit? And when you're in late April and you're about to hit the tournament, I'm not sure if this is the right spot. But Joey Spallina right there, from that same spot, we've seen him go down the alley lefty, and this time now he brings it back to his right, and that's the right time to go back to the strong hand because you don't have the pressure. In the first quarter, he made a similar dodge, and he went lefty.
The names on that list, he's now tied Tom Marechek on the freshman points ledger for Syracuse. Here comes Naso. O'Neal looking for Dyson Williams off his stick. The names on that list, 2 Powells, Zilberti, Marechek, and Spallina. That is elite company in terms of the most productive freshman seasons in Syracuse history.
Anish, it's pretty simple. They're all Hall of Famers. I mean, they're all in the Lacrosse Hall of Fame, those guys ahead of him. So, yes, it's insane in terms of the production. But as I said earlier, too, he's done it with a huge X on his back, and he has incredible lacrosse IQ. And that last goal, I thought, was a big example of that, because he's made similar move earlier in the game, and he kept on running and kept in his left hand, and there he had the space to have the awareness to keep it in his strong hand for more of a step down. So he's a bit of a chameleon who can adjust on the fly because of how smart he is.
2 goals for Spallina today. Here comes Kirst. Doubled, dumps it off. Birtwistle shoots it wide. You would appreciate Birtwistle's numbers. For his career, 39 goals, 0 assists.
Yeah, he's had some situations where teammates dropping balls, right, where he could get that easy assist. I know where you're going with this, all right? I'm not stupid.
Cook with the shot clock winding down. I think Koskinen might have called him the modern Carcaterra.
Yeah, I had some assists though. I never went 0 on the assist ledger. I had some easy ones though. On extra man, I would throw it to Casey Powell and Rob Kavovich, just working the ball around the horn and get those simple ones. Birtwistle is a phenomenal shooter, and today he's actually off. He's a great shooter. Today he's off. He's not in rhythm. He's missed 3 today that I've marked down where he's normally good for it. And they need him to hit those type of shots too, because he's typically the guy who's the recipient of the quick ball movement and the skip passes from Owen Hiltz.
Now we joke about it. His role on this team is finisher. Leadmon over to Dyson Williams, feeding Danenza, gets away, and tracked down by Brennan O'Neal. 3 goals and an assist for O'Neal. McAdorey's got a couple, a hat trick for Williams. This is dangerous. Leadman's got a short stick. Shakes Rhoa, looking to feed the crease. Mark knocks it down, springs out of the cage.
You know, Leadmon has had a phenomenal 5th year, right? And we saw that middle of the season stretch. The one area when I look at him from an offensive perspective to play in the PLL is to be able to make that kind of pass. I know about him as a scorer. He's also very two-handed. He can go right-handed, left-handed. He's a beast physically. The one area that I'm not completely sold is him as a passer. And at the PLL and the offensive spots, you have to be a quick, sudden decision maker if you're playing offensive midfield.
They've got Danenza trapped on defense. That one hits the crossbar. That might have been the first pipe of the game. Here's O'Neal, thundering down. This should be too easy. It is for Dyson Williams. Like magic to Kareem on a fast break. And it's 11-7 Duke.
Last time in the Carrier Dome, it was Duke that was unlucky with pipes. Today, it's Syracuse. The great ground ball by O'Neal. And I was talking about being sudden when I was referring to Leadmon. That is sudden. In the middle of a cradle, Brennan O'Neal can make that pass. He decides in his mind he's making the pass, and his body reacts in unison to a flashing Dyson Williams. Suddenness, to me, is one of the critical things in terms of offensive talent. How quick you can make that snappy pass, and that was a beautiful pass by Brennan O'Neal.
Clary coming the other way. Duke today celebrating the 2013 National Championship team. It was a team that beat Syracuse. They were down early in that game, and then Brendan Fowler basically won every face-off into Christmas. And in today's game, Duke dominating at the X against Syracuse, 16 out of 21. Now, what's the path for a comeback for the Cuse if they're not going to win face-offs? There's Rhoa. That's a hat trick for Luke Rhoa. First career hat trick, 10 goals now in his freshman campaign.
He's the most two-handed midfielder on this roster. And I said it in the first half when Rhoa hit the back of the net with consecutive goals, right-handed. I said he's a two-handed midi. A lot of Syracuse is a one-handed dominant team. He is a natural righty with the ability to hit the back of the net on the run lefty. This kid has some promise, he has some upside, and being two-handed like that just gives him so many more opportunities in the middle of the field there to sense a defense in the approach and go opposite.
O'Neal working on a 5-point game. Dyson Williams has 4, McAdorey 2. Schelling, 31 in white. An attackman at Lehigh. He scored on an invert. McAdorey gets around Alexo. Now it's Leadmon, or rather Schelling on the invert. Looking to get top side on Aviles. No slide, no help. Now McAdorey. Still plenty of time to shoot. Owen Caputo, a 20-goal scorer 2 years ago. Now on the second in midfield, speaking to Duke's depth. O'Neal feeds the crease. Caputo denied. And it's Carter Rice winning the race to the end line. Will Mark again making his presence felt.
It's a nice play by O'Neal because I think Syracuse played him as a shooter there, and he kind of lulled them into that spot.
You saw the hit by Ricky Miezon on Carter Rice last week. What did that feel like?
Well, the tough thing for Carter Rice is the still shots were captured as well.
I know.
with the helmet.
That's a YouTube moment. That's a viral moment these days.
It's a Pac-12 starting middle linebacker from Stanford who transfers to Virginia, playing in the middle of the field, lighting Carter Rice up. But to Carter Rice's credit, got right back up.
You remember that classic photo of Ali standing over Liston?
Of course.
There was a little of that in the still shot. Here comes Kirst, picked up by Carpenter.
They're so satisfying.
Kirst, 3 straight hat tricks. Dumps it back to Leo. Shot clock down to 12. Leo, another freshman. Now to Spallina. Shot clock at 5. Spallina around the crease. Yard sale, lost his stick. The Duke defense devouring him.
What a double, Anish.
Now Duke might have numbers. Syracuse gets back. Carc, well, for the Orange, their best win this season from an RPI standpoint, North Carolina. They have the win against Princeton. Princeton, I believe, has a top 20 RPI, but that's it. No wins in the RPI top 10, none against the top 5. If Syracuse were to beat Duke, if they find a way, do they have a chance of getting in? Well, they got to find a way first, and Danenza says it's a 4-goal game.
We'll get to Cuse's May hopes with a win today, but Aidan Danenza doesn't want to hear anything, Anish. The double team between Brower and Stevenson, timed perfectly. Duke gets another opportunity. The freshman Balsamo to the junior Danenza. Duke up 4.
Duke's dominance at the faceoff X. Fowler was the most outstanding player of championship weekend. And the story, at least partly today, Duke's dominance at the faceoff X. And the opponent, Syracuse today, Syracuse in 2013.
Yeah, Miles Jones, you saw him. He was a freshman on that team, and we're talking about the physicality of Ricky Miezon. I remember in the second half of that game, he just lowered a shoulder that led into a goal, and you just knew it was Duke's day. I also think of those 2013 and 14 seasons. For my money, and a lot of people would bring another player or two to the table, I think Jordan Wolf's actually the greatest Duke lacrosse player of all time, for my money, in terms of what he did and how he ran those teams, and he willed those teams to win. And he was virtually uncoverable in 2014. The only reason he didn't have a Tewaaraton trophy to his name is because Lyle Thomson was playing then.
Lyle Thomson put up one of the great seasons in the history of the sport. It took a historic season by Lyle Thomson.
And Wolf was just so quick and quarterbacked those teams, and
really denied. Bonafiti's done a nice job.
I would remember Anish going into those huddles in championship weekend, and you know when you just see it in an athlete's eyes that he wants the ball in that moment in a championship in May on Memorial Day to win a national championship for his team as Bonafiti makes that save. That was Wolf. He was so driven to win.
Birtwistle offline. I remember the last real big play of the 2014 championship when Notre Dame tried to double Wolf. He was taking it out and just ran by everybody and scored the game winner. Or the game sealer. Spallina, dangerous pass inside, a turnover.
They might be keeping the ball here, maybe call it a tip. Yeah, Syracuse continues with the ball. But this is really interesting. We touched on it earlier with Bonafide in the cage. Like, what do you make of this? I gave my opinion. What do you make of it?
Again, when you go into the postseason, especially last year, I go back to championship weekend last year, one of the common themes was every team had a hot goalie. Everybody had a hot goalie going in, and this is a Duke team with few weaknesses. You want your goalie in a good headspace, right? We want to take care of Quint down the stretch. We need him in a good headspace for May.
Yeah, good luck with that one.
It's been a long process. But we've talked to Q about it a lot. It's a position where you can sometimes overthink. And John Danowski, listen, he's won 3 national championships. He's won more games than anybody. I think if anybody's got the pulse of his players and what they can handle, it's him.
Yes, and
so there's a lot of leeway that goes there. No doubt.
That's his bread and butter, right? Like, from a psychological perspective, there's really very few that could match him in terms of understanding the pulse of his team and connecting with his players and challenging them. And that's what makes Dino Dino.
Here comes Caputo. Backing down his man. It's Max Rosa. Less than 20 to shoot. Shot clock into single digits. McAdorey feeds the wing. A whip shot by Wilson. It was too high. Schelling to Williams. No look behind the back. Are you not entertained?
Anish, this is his 4th goal. And although this is the prettiest, they all have something in common. How quick the ball is getting out of his stick today. With time and room inside, now even with a BTB. And that is the perfect time to shoot behind the back. You catch it with your strong left hand, you feel front side pressure on a righty goalie and hit it to the opposite pipe. I mean, you can't draw it better than that.
Maybe Van Gogh could, but that's about it. Dyson Williams, 5 goals today. Back-to-back 5-goal games. Hughes wins this face-off clean. It's fine. But no traction, no early offense. Kark, to go back to your point on the goalie, 2019 when Virginia won the national championship, Alex Rhoa, remember in the ACC tournament that year, we questioned the move by Lars Tiffany. He pulled Rhoa.
Yes.
And he put in Patrick Birkinshaw. And then what happened? Rhoa was the MOP of championship weekend that year, played some of his best lacrosse of his career.
It was a game against Carolina, if I recall, in the ACCs, but it was a very tightly tested game. This game was a little bit different, right? Duke was kind of a little bit in cruise control.
Hiltz, the high riser.
This is a fantastic shot in the pass by Spallina. To throw that to Hiltz across his body to the far side of the field with no angle, and the stick is low, and he shoots it to the near side. Owen Hiltz is so precise with his passing and his shooting. Like, he knows exactly what he's doing there. A lot of guys will cock the stick back, shoot, and just hope it hits the back of the net. He knows exactly where he's placing that on Bonafide and beating him near side to off stick I mean, there's no net virtually to shoot at there for Hiltz, but he finds it.
Hiltz, Alex Simmons, Finn Thomson. All Canadians, part of the Syracuse top 6. Bounce shot, Naso.
You know, Anish, you look at this Syracuse offense and why you have hope if they figure a way out face-off-wise. This offense scores 14 goals a game, while basically in ACC play, a lot of the times giving teams double the possessions.
Look at the first game when they played Duke. 66 shots to 32, and it was a one-goal game in overtime. Garrett Leadmon extending Duke's lead to 5.
I was talking about the projection of Leadmon as a PLL midfielder. Undeniably, he gets to the rack with his right and left hand. That's why I look at him as a two-way midi. I look at him because of his history playing defensive midfield last year and now playing offensive midfield. If you give him opportunities off quick substitutions from the defensive end, you can let his athleticism shine with plays like that. It's the 6-on-6 and tagging him as just an offensive midi. I don't know if that plays to the strength of his or a team that drafts him, but without question, there's a spot for a guy like Garrett Leadmon in the PLL because he's too athletic, he's too skilled, he's too two-handed. You know, you could put him in the middle of the field like so many of these guys do that have had offensive backgrounds, right? Danny Logan was the best short stick in the PLL last year. He played offensive midfield for Denver for 3 of his 4 years.
The PLL draft coming up in a little more than a week. You'll be in Bristol with Cotter and Boyle. May 9th. Save Bonafide. He stopped 3. Bonafide came in for Wilhelm in the first half. Helm was 5 of 11. It was not an injury substitution. You still got Gavin Adler as number 1 on your big board?
Yes, and at halftime, Coulter McAdorey, who leads the nation in points per game. I looked at the box score. He had a typical going against Adler day, 0-0. And McAdorey for Princeton's been one of the stories in college lacrosse. He's been automatic in terms of registering points. Gavin Adler, yeah, I think he's number 1. He's undersized a little bit, and people will question that, but he never is in a situation where, from a physical perspective, he gets bullied. He uses his low center of gravity, his pit bull mentality, and his competitive fire to be an eraser. I mean, what do you think of second one?
I'll get to it. Final seconds, quarter number 3, Brennan O'Neal. That's 4 for O'Neal. His second 6-point game against Syracuse this season. And Duke starting to pull away.
We talk about number 1 prospects in the PLO, and he's draft eligible in another year. It will be hard not to take this freight train, who has a ridiculous amount of power and skill in that combo. I mean, the defense is doubled and draped all over O'Neal. And in one motion, he soaks the check and turns and rips it. He's been the guy since he's in 9th, 10th grade. People have looked at him as the generational talent. Maybe the biggest prospect in, geez, I don't even know how long.
Brennan O'Neal, 200 career points. He hits the milestone right before that 3rd quarter buzzer. All 4 of his goals unassisted. He can't be stopped. Not today, not most of this season, not most of his career. At stake today for Duke, they are locked into a top 3 seed. If they win today, if they win next week against Merrimack, at worst a 2 seed, maybe even a 1 seed. We showed you this at halftime, the committee's latest top 10 reveal. Notre Dame sitting at 1, The Irish have a big game tomorrow against Virginia and then play a North Carolina team next week. UNC needs a win to have a shot to get in. In progress, and you can watch this on the ESPN app, Cornell and Princeton going down to the wire. Princeton leading Cornell 12-11. As of right now, Kark, I don't think Princeton is in the at-large mix. They beat Cornell. Maybe that changes the calculus, but that would likely drop Cornell off of the seed line, at least as of the moment.
Absolutely, and it would put pressure on the Big Red to possibly have to win that first Ivy semifinal game next week in New York, because at a conference, you thought the Ohio State win for Cornell would be big. Ohio State has tanked. Army now loses yesterday against BU. That doesn't help them at a conference.
No.
So, yeah, Cornell's in a spot right now where if they lose this game, they might have to win the semifinal game in New York. And that's why the Ivy Championships in New York are going to be so awesome next week. Last year, they got 6 teams in. You knew the 4 that were in the Ivy Championships were all going. This time now, they're going to be fighting for their lives.
They are, and there's going to be a lot of moving pieces until we get to that final Sunday for the Ivy League Championship, which takes place about 8 hours before we reveal the bracket. Flag down. Spallina finds Kirst. It's 15-10.
Credit the Orange, too, continuing to fight. Looks like Cole Kirst is limping right there, but he will not take himself out of this game, as his brother up in Ithaca right now is in a dogfight of his own against Princeton. CJ Kirst, one of the Tuorton frontrunners. So impressed with Kirst's 5th year, the grad transfer from Lehigh, and what he's done for this Orange team. This is a year where there's so much young talent on the team, but they needed leadership offensively, and that's what 40 and Blue has done for Gary Gate.
So Syracuse now, they got the penalty. They face off 3 versus 2. Rachuza wins it clean. And this Orange man up. 37 goals on the season, entering today 13 more than any other team in Division I. Spallina and Birtwistle tied for the national lead with man-up goals. Each have 10. And Hiltz has been the catalyst. 14 extra man assists. Birtwistle from Spallina. It's 15-11. It's the 40th career goal for Birtwistle. His 11th extra man goal of the season. That now leads the nation. And Cuse with it 4.
Teams are so worried about the skip pass, Anish, when you play Syracuse and their extra man. Every defender wants their stick up in the passing lane, but sometimes you just find these easy layups because of the perimeter passing of Syracuse. The ball moves at hyperspeed, and that is a stat. 2015, there was a couple of good offensive players at Albany, one by the last name of Thomson and one in Fields. That group was ridiculous.
Big ground ball there by Rhoa. Feedy will clear. Duke has to get it across midfield before the shot clock hits 60. Leadmon slipped. There's the double. Leadmon pinballs through the Orange defense. And now he lost his stick, has to go retrieve it. They'll get him for a procedure call, playing without a stick. Here comes Syracuse the other way, the Orange refusing to go down. Meanwhile, Cornell has tied it up on Princeton, knotted at 12. Yale leading Harvard in the 4th quarter. The winner of that game gets the 4th and final spot in the Ivy League tournament. Cornell, Penn, Princeton have secured a spot. From the wing, big save, Bonafide. Spallina has the backup. Kark, we saw Spallina down the stretch take over against UNC. It's what you expect from a number 22. In this game, he's assisted on the last 3 Syracuse goals and hasn't had a hand in 4 of the last 5.
And his plus-minus has been spectacular today. He has not turned the ball over. He was doubled once late in the shot clock. I love his poise. His decision-making, the pass in the third quarter across his body to the backside to Hiltz.
That resets the shot clock. Cook had a clean look. Duke's got to dig in defensively. Somebody lost a stick. Hiltz shoots offline. Spallina has the backup. Broken stick on the field. Rhoa calling for it. Hiltz to Birtwistle, the Magic. They're not going away. This may be their final game of the season, win or lose. And Syracuse putting up a fight, 3 straight to begin this fourth quarter.
The broken stick, essentially, Anish, because the Duke player has to run off the field, puts Syracuse extra man. They're almost automatic when they're extra man. And they recognize they're a player up. And Birtwistle now, who is struggling a little bit in that first half, finding the back of the net, hits 2 in a row. This orange offense is not going away. The question is, can they get those critical possessions?
John Danowski's Duke Blue Devils coming off a bye week. Now his message to his team these last few weeks, 60 minutes. He said at times they haven't played the full 60 minutes, and in this rivalry, 7 of the last 9 have been decided by 1 goal. 4 of those games have gone to overtime, and this looked to be on the verge of a Duke runaway, 15-9 going into the fourth quarter. Syracuse with 3 goals in the first 3 minutes, and now they're winning faceoffs. There's Rhoa to play it back to Spallina.
Coach Danowski says that because of the fact of their inability to close out games. They're -5 in the fourth quarter throughout the season. As a coach, you want to close out games, especially in conference play against a young team like Syracuse.
Here's Leo, who had the game winner against UNC. It's 4 straight by the Orange. They have closed to within 2. And I go back to what John Danowski told us a few days ago. He said the Syracuse team, if you read the stat sheet, you would think they're getting blown out. North Carolina a few weeks ago blew out Syracuse on the stat sheet. The Orange find a way to hang in there, make it a game against UNC. They ended up winning.
And Leo has been smooth, and he has ability to step up in fourth quarters with the winner against UNC. And now this goal, he's a tremendous left-handed swingman. The two-handed cradle, always shot ready. But this is a team, when you give them possessions, and they rarely have that advantage, especially in ACC play. They've been minus 50% in every ACC game at the face-off X. You give this team opportunities, you give them the ball, they move the ball so quickly and put pressure on an opposing defense.
Big face-off win by Naso to give Duke a breather, and the Syracuse contingent at Koskinen got loud there for a moment.
They always travel.
4 goals in less than 2.5 minutes. Here comes Leadmon. O'Neal marked by the freshman Dwan. Balsamo. He was the hero for Duke in the first meeting between these two. An overtime affair in Syracuse. He's got the short stick matchup. Crowd wants a flag. Balsamo rolling inside, turned away. Now a flag flies.
Vilas got away with the first one. I thought could have been a hold. And the crowd was antsy. And Avila stayed aggressive, 43 in blue. And they got him on this second look once Balsamo got around goal line extended and got inside of Avilas. Here's this play right there. You know, I thought the first one was more of a hold than that one. You know, Balsamo's head kind of jerks back. That helps his cause in terms of getting that call.
Duke now with the extra man. They have led by as many as 6. Williams has 5 goals. O'Neal's got 4. McAdorey to Dyson Williams. Back to Danenza. Here's Caputo. Stick check. Loose in front. Williams scores. 6 goals for Dyson Williams.
Dyson on the spot. Duke got a little lucky here because I'm watching this extra man evolve, and they're so tight. There's no spacing there. All 6 players are kind of right on top of each other, and that allows Syracuse to get that initial check. But the ball is on the grass, and the last player on this field, if you're Syracuse, that you want in front of the goal, picking up some loose change, is 51 in white.
Syracuse, another face-off win. Plays it to Spallina. Slams on the brakes.
Chusa's beaten Naso clean a few times, Anish.
He's won a couple here. Spallina waiting for Syracuse to get back to even strength. Then Thomson behind the back pass. And now it'll be a 6-on-6 as Syracuse gets its full complement on.
He's got a shorty. He's going. Kirst is going to the rack.
Against Aidan Maguire, the freshman. Now Simmons skips it wide. Spallina's got the backup. Spallina today, 5 points. Up to 68 on the season. Mike Powell had 70 as a freshman. Leo to Spallina, freshman to freshman. Now Simmons, 4 goals last week. Shot clock down to 10. Boyer all over him. Hiltz against Stevenson. Hiltz saved Bonafide, not much on the shot. Outlet off the stick of Wilson Stevenson. Will Mark, no saves in the second half. Schelling, Owen Caputo. Forced back. Seguider with good defense. Now it's O'Neal. Schelling on the invert, has his man hung. Schelling snakes around the crease. Feeds to Dyson Williams. Mark with a gorgeous save, his first of the half. He read it. Dyson Williams does not miss often for point-blank range. Wow.
Yeah, he was going offside on Mark. But Anish, if someone told you Will Mark wouldn't make a save until this stage of the 4th quarter and Syracuse would be in this game, you probably would have laughed, right? Just tells you stats sometimes don't always tell the story. But he was great in the first half and spectacular on that last shot by Dyson Williams.
Spallina against Brower. Rhoa, that's a moving pick. Good call by the official. Over these last few weeks, you start to get the sense for a lot of these ACC teams, this might be the last year to get your punches in on Syracuse.
Talent is there now. The freshmen have had massive impact on this team this year, so they'll be a year older. And I also think they're going to plug some holes. They're going to get some guys in the portal, in between the lines type guys from an athletic perspective that could give this offense some added punch and transition to go along with their 6-on-6 style. And if you talk to some people who know the face-off game, guys like Greg Grenley and guys like Joe Nardella, they will tell you there is a big-time recruit coming for Cuse and Johnny Mullins, who's from Massachusetts. So they have a bright young star at the face-off X. But if you're Gary Gait going into the season, you probably want to add some depth there as well and not put too much pressure on your face-off game with the existing guys that you have in Rachusa and Fine. And if Mullins comes in, I think adding depth there probably gives you a little bit more flexibility and comfortability.
That's been the big Achilles heel. Syracuse bottom 10 nationally in face-off win percentage. Spallina and Kirst play catch. Less than 5 minutes to go. Kirst skips it to Simmons. In traffic, lost it. Boyer's got it. It's Boyer out of the Tempest, chased by Simmons. Charlie O'Connor jogs it in. He is a threat to score. Flag down. So Duke's about to go man up, and they can milk some clock here as well. I mean, you could shave 2 minutes off this game if you play it right. They shoot, and Maguire scores.
We were talking earlier about the short stick defensive midfield position. Total change from a year ago. You take Leadmon, who was a shorty in 2022, you put him on offense, and he has a awesome year offensively. But then you have a guy like Aidan Maguire, who's an offensive midfielder in high school out of the state of Massachusetts. You have the confidence to keep him on the field. Jack Gray's another. And I said it earlier, this isn't just a short stick defensive midfield group who's playing better defense than a season ago, but they're also guys you feel comfortable with keeping on the field.
Gray, O'Connor, Maguire, and Jake Caputo, 20-plus career goals. And you got to remember, Gray's a sophomore who didn't play a whole lot last year. Maguire's a freshman. We saw O'Connor running on the first and second midfields at time a season ago. Well, Caputo's the vet there. And you always have Leadmon, who we know can play two ways if you needed that. Rachusa has won 6 out of 12. He fires high. That might be Duke ball. Ooh, Syracuse caught a break. Bonafide almost won that race. It's closest to the ball when it goes out of bounds. They give it to Hiltz.
I give Rachusa a lot of credit. Last week he had a tough first quarter against Petey LaSalle in Virginia, and he responded. Today he's been really solid in this fourth quarter and giving his team a chance to come back in this game. But Anish, to your thoughts in regards to that position, Maryland had 4 last year, and that kind of catapulted them and gave them flexibility when they had an injury to Rhoa and Puglisi, right? Like, they knew they could absorb, even though he was one of the best short stick defensive middies in the country, they were deeper than everyone in that spot.
Back-breaking turnover for Syracuse. Here's Caputo. That was one of the better short stick D-midi units we've seen. They had a great road unit in 2017, and last year, a guy like Bubba Fairman, you mentioned Puglisi, who did get hurt once we got to Memorial Day weekend. Alex Smith.
Those are units that can define a team. I thought 2018, Ty Warner and Jason Alessi from Yale were spectacular. How about 2012 when Josh Hawkins was running around the field for Loyola, and that rope unit with Scott Ratliff
as the pole. How many goals did Ratliff score that year? At least a dozen, maybe more?
Yes, that group was phenomenal. It's it's a position where younger players sometimes think, you know, you've played offense your whole life, and they look at it as almost a demotion.
Spot. They went from a no glamour position to a glamour position in the last few years with the advent of the shot clock. Card today, a couple of Long Island boys have shown up. Joey Spallina and Brennan O'Neill, teammates way back as far as 3rd grade. 5 points for Spallina, 6 points for O'Neill, and Andrew McAdorey, who was part of that Long Island team when all of them played together in 3rd grade and beyond. McAdorey's come through as well with 2 goals and 2 assists. So O'Neill and Spallina, the 2 stars, have shown out. Duke with a 4-goal lead. Now remember, Syracuse did score 3 goals in the first 2:25 of the 4th quarter. Orange have 1 timeout. 3:01 left in regulation. Final regular season game for Syracuse. If they lose, this is it for them. If they win, now they need a few things to go right. If they win, you can't count them out fully, especially after what we saw the committee do last year. Kirst saved Bonafide, loose near the crease. This is a big ground ball. And Syracuse scores out of the scrap heap. It's Simmons. There's a flag
he is
down.
A scrapper.
Goal is good. Flag is on white. 2-3. Unsportsmanlike. 1 minute. Full time. No face off.
That is monumental, given how good this Syracuse man-up unit is. So you now have a minute if you're Syracuse, non-releasable, and you're going to be man-up for the full minute. It doesn't matter how many goals you score. And I think if you're Gary Gate, getting just 1 goal here with this penalty is not enough.
Yes, and it's after the play, so that's why there's no face-off.
Spallina feeding inside, and Bonafide clamps down. Thomson in the crease, and now Duke will try to kill some clock. If you're Syracuse, you got to press out, don't you?
Double the ball, absolutely. Tomorrow we have a dandy, Notre Dame, Virginia, ACC network. Your belief is if Notre Dame wins and then beats Carolina end of the regular season, they're the one. That's your belief,
They
right?
have
That's
the head-to-head against Duke, so
yes,
I think, yes,
exactly.
It would come down to that, yeah. And now they'll double the ball. They let a lot of seconds drip off the clock. Balsamo playing keep away. Over to Jack Gray. Now back to full strength. Duke did its job. Less than 30 seconds on the shot clock. 90 in the game. Schelling. Machetes through the defense. It'll stay with Duke and O'Neill. 18 on the shot clock.
Schelling took a
Did that get a piece of Mark? Did that get a piece of Mark?
the helmet looked like it stuck to Schelling's nose a little bit too. Dwan absolutely
Flag down.
pounded Schelling.
35 blue, unnecessary. 1 minute. Blue 28, unsportsmanlike. 1 minute, full time.
We'll have to take another look at this. The initial hit from Dwan, I thought looked pretty clean. Lowers his shoulder. You know, he did not, it was not a helmet-to-helmet hit. What did it was the impact towards the chest area. It looked like Schelling's head kind of catapulted backwards. That hit kind of looked clean to me, Anish. It's the aftermath, him losing his helmet. And I get in real time why a ref would make that call, but when you look at it in slow-mo, Dwan laid the boom right in the chest area.
Yeah, and Carc, it's a penalty on Nick Kakemo as well. They mentioned 28 in blue. So Duke is up 2 men. There's 86 seconds to go in the game. It's a 2-minute man up, a 60-second shot clock, and that basically writes the epitaph on the season for Syracuse.
They'll turn the page. They'll get active in terms of the transfer portal, in terms of the recruiting. The only positive for a team ending their season in late April is you get a head start. You watch more high school games in the month of May, and you get a real strong beat on the next class. And that class is the 2025 classes. That's their big summer, because heading into the month of September, they become recruitable. So a lot of sophomore evaluation from a high school perspective. But Anish, there's a final up in Ithaca, and Cornell beats Princeton by 1 in overtime.
Which is a big win for Cornell. I think with that win, they probably are safe in terms of an at-large spot. They go to Columbia and New York City for the Ivy League tournament. Yale beat Harvard, so the Ivy League field is set for the Ivy tournament. Cornell, Princeton, Penn, and Yale gets that final spot. John Danowski's team on the verge of its 12th win of the season. Only losses early in the year to Jacksonville, and they lost to Notre Dame and South Bend. And for Duke, a bona fide national championship contender. That team in 2021, we know how good they were on paper, but on the field, they haven't been as good as this team. This is a team in every sense of the word, Kark. I know it's cliche, but there's a togetherness, there's a chemistry. We've talked to John Danowski about it, and he said, yeah, something was missing in 2021 with this team. All the pieces fit. This is a team that has a real chance to dogpile on Memorial Day.
In sports, you know better than anyone, chemistry is not overrated. Like chemistry defines championship runs. Sometimes you're not the most talented, but you have more chemistry, as Balsamo with a little icing on the cake, and that expression tells you that's the end of it for Cuse. But I also think this unit for Duke in 2023, as Balsamo just gets a ton of time and room against Mark. The area that I talked about earlier, they're better at short stick D-midi. They're better in the middle of the field. Carpenter's a couple years older on the wing as a face-off wing guy. Like, that makes a huge difference, because Naso's a mainstay, but Naso's a couple years older now. He's stronger. His wing play is more dialed into his cadence. Like, the middle of the field is as good as that 2021 team was when O'Neal was a freshman and Michael Sowers was on that team. The middle of the field for this team is better.
And defensively, with Brower, with Stevenson, you're talking about all-America caliber players back there. Carpenter, extremely talented. Boyer's come along. Frizzoli's a threat in transition.
I think Stevenson has had an incredible season. He's an enforcer in the middle too. Like, when you play inside, he's played perimeter too. He's guarded Sam Hanley and shows that he could press play. But when you play in the inside, you feel it against Stevenson. absolutely makes you understand where he is, and you feel his stick. This is another example of the ball movement. Yep.
To Finn Thomson, that's freshman to freshman, 18-15.
Finn is so smooth. Plays the two-man game with Alex Simmons so well. When those two Canadians are on the high righty wing, he'll be looking for another mate next year in terms of that two-man game.
It's going to be a fun finish to the season. The top of the ACC and Duke, Notre Dame, and Virginia, all bona fide national championship contenders. They're jockeying for position amongst the top 3 seeds. Carolina on the bubble with an opportunity against Notre Dame. The Ivy League tournament should be fun next week in New York. The Big Ten tournament, as wide open a Big Ten tournament as we can remember. But the Duke Blue Devils pin their ACC schedule with a win against Syracuse. They sweep the season series against the Orange, 12-2 on the season. The Blue Devils close out with Merrimack next week and then await their seeding on Selection Sunday. No drama for Duke this year. They'll be one of the top 3 seeds, and they've got a chance to play on Memorial Day.